Hello and welcome to another episode of Superpowers, the show where you get to experience the extraordinary. And today is going to be extraordinary. I'm so excited. I've got a wonderful guest today. His name is Max Christensen. And Max, I think I could only describe as a true and bona fide mystic. He's got a rich history of training, of learning with masters from all different kinds of traditions and long histories and lineages of information that are from China, it's from Hawaii, it's from Native Americans, and Max has developed a system for attaining and opening to really your truest essence, who you are. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk a little bit about how Max found this path and how he got to be where he is. And so I think we are going to just go ahead and jump right in and say hello to Max. So, hello, Max.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good, good. It's rare. It's rare that I get the opportunity to talk this way.
Well, you know what? It's actually wonderful, and I'm very thankful that you would take some minutes so that we could do this for our audience. Because I'm really excited that I got a chance to talk to you, and I know they're going to be excited to hear what you've got to say. I want to just start, just sort of as a kind of as an intro for people who may not know you a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about what your journey was that got you to this place where you are right now, just a little bit, and what compelled that.
Well, just in my general background, I've been training with the Darkha tradition of Inner Mongolia, the shamans. They're one of the original, more powerful shamans since I was very young, since 9. I studied Wudang Taoism from one of my teachers, who was my uncle. Mao Shan and Shangqing Taoism from my teachers in Beijing and Hawaii, the Kahuna Hawaiian tradition, the Peliku and Kanalu from from Kauai and also in Honolulu. Let's see, Ainu tradition of Hokkaido, Japan. They're the bear and snake clans. I belong to snake clans and everything. I was a Nakpa Dorje in the Nyingma tradition out of Potrang Monastery in Nepal. What else? I was honored, but I didn't do the training with the Taos Pueblo Native American tradition of the Red Willow Society. My name was Red Willow Standings in those days. All my names relate with wind. My Japanese, name is Rera Mantorami, means origin of wind.
Right.
My Taoist name is Ching Feng, means pure wind. So that's because that's the ability of transferring the knowledge and awakening.
Yeah.
But how I got this path started is when I was about 6, I was actually pretty unhealthy. I had an enlarged heart, couldn't breathe very well. I had 2 brothers that had passed on before me from just, various sicknesses. And one of my teachers kind of took me under the wing, per se, on a military base back in '68 when my father was in the military. And from there, I learned qigong, how to heal myself, a little of the, martial arts, a lot of cleaning the floor, a lot of, cleaning the yard to get my strength back.
Mm-hmm.
These herbs, and then eventually I was up in Grayling, Michigan, and that was 1969, around November or so. And it was the thunderstorm season. I was with my Taoist teacher and his wife, who incidentally was, a Mongolian shaman. I don't know how they got together. Her name was Strong Stone, and she's very strong-willed. So I was learning thunder breathing at the time, and I love the Mongols. Anybody who knows me knows that's my heart. And I was up there, and being a 9-year-old boy, you don't think too much. You
Right.
don't listen. And I had a pull up, and it was a great thunderstorm, and it was Lake Margarita in Grayling, Michigan. I held my fishing pole up, and I was doing this thunder breathing, which I didn't know at the time makes you very conductive to any type of electricity. And so I couldn't resist. I had a thing with the storms, and I stood up on this wet rock, and I slipped in the water, and I come back out. And I held up my fishing pole, and all I remember from when I was thunder breathing is a big bright flash of light, and I was hit my fishing pole looked like those 1970s, those fiber optic lamps. It was just
Mm-hmm.
splattered. It
Mm-hmm.
took me a few days. My teacher found me and then, nursed me back. And, I was lucky I didn't get severe burns or anything. And he said, well, it was the destiny of the gods. That's the Mongolian way. You were touched. And the nice side effect is I was hit here, welded here open almost for 30 years. It took me 30 years to kind of close it out.
Right.
And then all my other teachers kind of helped me on the path. I've had a lot of death experiences back in the early 79. Well, I'm saying about mid 1985. I was in a car accident in the military, and I got a rebar through here and out the back.
Oh, geez. All
And I
right.
survived.
So I'm wrong about the near-death experiences. You've had tons of them. So,
Yeah, I've been bit by rattlesnake, bit by cobra. In Hong Kong, I went to a snake alley. I have a thing with snakes, snake clan.
right.
And the herbalist wasn't very good, and I had drink. He had put some industrial alcohol into the snake wine, and
Mm-hmm.
he put the snake venom glands into the soup. I drank it. He gave me the wrong thing, and
Oh.
that kind of hurt the insides really bad. We use that for cleaning table.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I feel very strange, and my Kunlun started kicking up. I was very blissful, so I said, I'm going to the bathroom. And I go to the bathroom, then the people are looking for me. So they went looking for me, and this is in a Chinese mall in Hong Kong, and they found me black and blue, and I was unconscious. My heart stopped for 3 hours straight. They tried to start it.
Wow.
Then I woke up, I smiled at everybody, and then I went out again, and they tried to start it again, shipped me to another place. And then they said, the amount of venom that you had from the vipers and that, and the cobras, in this mixture, I'll never wake up again. It was destroying the brain cells, the blood cells. And my heart stopped, and they said, well, we can't do any more for you.
Mm.
And so it was ready to be, they're going to ship me back to the mainland.
Right.
It's a very interesting experience. I don't talk too much about it, but let's just say that I was put into a refrigerator, and I woke up the next morning knocking on the door wanting out. And that the Beijing Science Research Department started doing examinations. The Army, the military, NASA, many people wanted to learn about how the Kunlun regenerated. And I've had a lot of these accidents, but they were telling me, they were showing me the spirit world, because I said, you picked a hard path, because I love alchemy, and these happen a lot. But now that I'm kind of a little bit older and wiser, I don't take those extreme trips anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Uh-huh.
I've done some extreme trips where, when I was on Big Island of Hawaii, I went looking for. I'm great at finding tombs. In the
Mm-hmm.
military, to find old technology. If we have a satellite and so on. And I went looking for a very special place, and I had to hike 57 miles into this Big Island, into this place that's secret. Even the Kahunas are fear of going there.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit a trap. That's all I'm going to tell you. And I had shattered my ribs and dislocated my shoulders. I had to walk out 57 miles in the dark with the injuries,
Oh.
with no flashlights, in a freezing rain. I was at over 6,000 feet high.
Hmm.
And that's how, Deanna found out about, wow, his path is really interesting. And I got
Yeah.
at sunrise after walking out, and they said I looked like a ghost, but then my body regenerated.
Right. Wow. Wow.
Kunlun is amazing for healing, too.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's a short Reader's Digest condensed version.
There we go. All right. Well, it's a very, very deep condensed version. Question for you. When we spoke on Tuesday, we were just talking about things that you've learned and the lineage of some of the teachings, and it's centuries old and or more, and you stay with it because it's time tested, and it works. I had a question for you about that, and I just wonder what your thought is, which is, what's the origin of it? Where does it come? How did somebody figure it out? I mean, I always wonder that, like, about people who bake, and they go, the cake is going to do better if there's baking powder in it. Well, who figured that out, and who even knew what baking powder was?
Well, without breaking too many traditional rules, because the old teachers don't like me telling a lot of things. So
Right.
let me give you the Sonic viewpoint, and this goes with a lot of the Taoist things too. The Taoists used to talk about the Xians, the immortals,
Mm-hmm.
You know, the Mongolians, they talk about the sky clan who comes to visit. They call it Kakan, or Tengri, the endless blue sky. And what happened, example in Dark Hat in our tradition, this is where Genghis Khan is buried, is in the Dark Hat Depression in Inner Mongolia. And, the Dark Hats, there's only about 18,000 of the people left. Yeah, very old tradition. And they believed that the first shaman, which means keeper of secrets, teller of lies, because a lot of people won't believe what a shaman says, but they're the keepers of the original knowledge.
Right.
And we're not talking about these new agey shaman, we're talking about the old tradition.
Yeah.
Shaman, my teachers say, are not even 1% where they used to be 100 years ago. That's how much has been lost because we got more modern.
Mm-hmm.
And they say that the first shaman walked up to Mount Altai, and some of the Tibetans call it the Nagas, the flying Nagas, whatever you want to call, descended from the skies and gave the first knowledge to the shaman. Those shaman being the keepers of the original knowledge. And I got a practice going back over 2,700 years that I just received from an old master who was passing. And it's the practice even the Buddha and his people learned to get, we call it the samadhi fire, the full enlightenment, not
Right.
the modern stuff. This is only known by a very small handful of people.
Yeah.
And so the shaman got this knowledge and he gave it to people. And each tradition is a little bit different. The same beings, different name.
Mm-hmm.
Quetzalcoatl, same thing.
Right.
And so what happened is that as the time went by, we got more modern. These things became more formalized. And then eventually they become into a technique. Now, what's kind of sad about these days, a lot of the old masters have passed on. 99% of Earth's mystery schools are fire path, Kundalini type exercise. And even people who practice it, it's very rarely to get the true awakening.
Mm-hmm.
A
Right.
lot of people get, we call the illusionary heat outside, we call the Shishumne or thrusting channel. But then there are two schools, maybe three, that I'm not aware of, but there's two that I'm aware of. That's the water path. And those are the path of the immortals, the Xians.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of my teachers that I've met in Beijing, some look around 50 years old. And one of the Xians that I met at the Dragon Temple, Dragon Gate Temple, was kind of, he said, well, nobody talks to him. Nobody even understands his language. It's so old.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to meet him. And this monk took me, and that was his third generation. He was 80 years old. And he taught his father and his father before. So I said, oh, this man must be very, very old. And I walk in there and I sit in front of him, some students I had bought. And they say, nobody can listen to what he's saying. And all of a sudden I hear in my mind, and his disciple can understand, it says, you're late. It's been 3 days. You're late. Why aren't you here before? And I goes, I don't even know you. And he says, you forgot who I am. It was my teacher from the past. And he was a Xian, an immortal. They showed me a paper. He was well documented, over 350 years old.
Wow.
And
Wow.
his eyes were all black when he
Mm-hmm.
opened up. And that meant to be part of the Tao, the great emptiness. He could do mind to mind. Language wasn't a barrier.
Right.
But the government in Beijing don't like those type of people because they want the old ways to die. He has to run from temple to temple and hide. That's
That,
They think it's outdated. The old ways must die. That's how they feel.
right. Right. Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of me that fights that. I
I'm one of the very few who, guailos, or white. Uh, saying guaylo is not really nice either. It's like saying haole from
uh
Hawaii,
yeah.
means without life.
Right.
Walking ghost. And I was with the Taoist community and Chinese community since very, very young. But then I started teaching outsiders. Then they got extremely upset and
Right.
created, my life went into great, great misery and havoc because of teaching outsiders.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe the old ways, so they don't die, each generation must be greater than the one before it. So I teach all these very extremely rare things that you will actually can get attainment. It's
Mm-hmm.
not if and but or maybe. If you
Right.
do the practice, you'll get it. It
Yeah.
was designed that way. It was immediate. If you're really open and you're playful, that childlike nature, not like a monk, you don't have to be that way. It's not like 2,000 years ago.
Yeah.
If you do the practice right, you will have all these magnificent awakenings, like the pictures I showed you the other day.
Yes. Yeah. Which are amazing, by the way. Just for the sake of my audience, he showed me pictures, and it would blow your minds to see, to see what is in these photographs. So let me just quickly, going back a second, just for the edification of our audience. You told us about Waterpath and who the Waterpath teachers are. Just a little bit more, can you just talk a little bit more about what Firepath is, just so that they know the distinction between Firepath and Waterpath?
Well, Firepath is basically utilizing chakras, meditation, visualizations in order to rise a dormant potential of a nuclear current from basically your tailbone up either through the spine. Some traditions, it's in the center of the body. There's variations like Tumo in Tibet. There's the Samadhi fire in the Tibetan traditions and Buddhist traditions. There's bringing on the fire in the Mongolian tradition, where your body catches fire actually and there's nothing left. And those, are, how would I say, without breaking people's, minds and understandings, is that it was a secondary. It came from the actual water practices, which a lot of the history, they won't tell you that. And what I mean by this is that they use methods to get to an end, the awakening.
Mm-hmm.
But in the water path, in the Kunlun Mountains, where our tradition was from, Khan went there, my disciple, and he found that there was nothing to practice because of spontaneous letting go nature, and nature takes a course. So the end result of those masters is just open toward you. The body responds to the opening. And so all of a sudden the body starts to move, and they noticed, the old masters, after a while, that you kept doing something, an effect, a siddhi or some attainment of physical or body or mind started taking place. Now, in those days, they didn't have much of an ego, so everybody could learn like a family. And then they noticed that, well, one day someone decided, well, I don't want to lose my power. I want to be something a little bit more than everybody else. So he kind of cut back a little bit on something. And so the end result is they didn't give you the opening first and let it manifest through the body without, just surrendering, and it happened itself naturally.
Mm-hmm.
They decided, I'm not going to give you that part. I'm going to give you the movements, and eventually, if you do it enough, the body will awaken that potential, but not all the way.
Mm-hmm.
As time progressed, they started hiding that root and just giving you the end of the movement itself.
Right.
Now, after a while, you open up the body. We say, as above, so below. The head, the body reflection of mind. All of a sudden, you close your eyes, you start seeing some light. Or you see these flowers you consider a chakra. Well, everything's purely 99.9% airspace. You don't really have a physical body. But the movement stimulated energy to open up 9 dormant parts of the brain called HO2. In quantum science, they're vacuum points where you can access free energy. That's why we always say mind is gravity. That's like a meditative talk. And so the energy went up there, and all of a sudden I see in my mind, because I'm always here, wow, there's this flower of light, or chakra as you call it. But in actuality, it's when those vacuum points open in the brain, the electricity went through the neurons, and you perceived, when those dormant parts open up, it's like a source of energy from the center, and then the lightning goes out. It looks like a chakra.
Mm-hmm.
But since we're so much in the body, it's reflected down here. As above, so below. So again, the masters didn't want you to have that because, I did the water path, it opened, and I see the effect. Later on, the fire path, let's just see the effect. Try to find the source of that, which is illusion, and then you'll activate up here.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it got kind of diluted through the time. And, if you research, a lot of the great masters, and there's a book, How Great Beings Die. For some reason, almost every accomplished master who didn't attain the rainbow body, the body of light, dragon body, moksha, is to be called, they died of cancer. They, usually liver cancer. Even the highest lamas I know and masters have died that way. One is they give too much energy. They always give,
Right.
but they never hold for themselves. And we say in shamanism, if you're the last shaman and you get sick because you gave somebody else, who's going to help you?
Right.
So the practices is to regenerate your body first. That's the alchemy of our practices.
Right. And I remember an interesting distinction you made in talking about those practices was, and I think the specific example was fire breath, how you're actually calling upon the illusion
Mm-hmm.
for your effect, as opposed to beginning within where the truth is.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me give you an example. And this is in a lot of qigong, neigongs, different practices. A lot of the teachers are not told the complete knowledge. When their teacher dies, the teacher these days, if it's the great master and he's passing on, he always keeps a little bit to himself so his students don't get better. So when he dies, his next one who's taking over think, oh, I got the complete system. But like my teacher, I'm going to keep a little bit more. Now think how many generations go by. How much
Right,
do you lose?
right.
And so that, and I've always saw this, and that's why when people come see me, I give you as much as you can handle to a point where your mind just shuts off. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of the old masters don't like that I do that.
Right.
They say, no, you're not supposed to teach them. This is not for them or that. And I look at people first before they come see me, and I test them to make sure that they're not in their ego and they're not going to use it for a bad purpose.
Right. Yeah.
Because it's very easy. It's very easy. And what's very hard for people in these days is when they get a true knowledge, um, it's hard to fit in the outside world, or the bliss gets so addictive. A lot of people get addicted to bliss because, oh, I don't feel good in my life. And so they get into the practice, and it's so a wonderful feeling, they don't want to leave it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Thing with true awakening is there's no difference between the world inside, the microcosm, and the world outside. You got to look with unattachment. It's all the same. It's a sea of energy. It's just mind.
Right.
You separate that polarity of I'm going to do the spiritual world and the physical, you aren't going to get anywhere. And water path, we're always here. The middle path, like the Buddha says, this is the place of heaven. The lower dantian or energy center is earth. See? And when we're doing Kunlun and it opens the dormant parts, what you perceive as energy, like Kundalini, say, wow, it's a great form of energy. But the old masters always used to say it's not really energy. Your fragmented part of your little mind is becoming part of the whole mind. Much like if you took a hologram and you cut it into pieces, each little piece still has a complete picture of the hologram.
Mm-hmm.
So when
Right.
you see mind getting more immense or smaller, the universe at the head of the pin, you actually feel like, oh, this tremendous surge of energy. But it's just mind. And when you free yourself even of attachment of that energy, then things are very easy to awaken.
So
Mm-hmm.
let's talk a little bit about Kunlun, and let's talk a little bit about um, you and when when you are teaching a class, and just what that's like. Do you teach large groups of people? Do you teach a few people at a time? And kind of what is that process? What would somebody expect if they wanted to learn from you?
Well, one thing you're probably gonna notice, I'm very informal. I'm not like I hate when people call me Sifu or that, because Taoists don't like names because it holds them back. So
Right.
people just informal Max, and anybody who knows me knows this. Kunlun, we call it the path of no more learning, because we call it means the top of the head when the crown opens up. Like you see, mine, see, mine's always open.
Uh huh.
No, yeah, when a crown should always be open when you're in the awakening. It's awakened. It's open at birth, at death, or spiritual practices. My normal human being is closed. So as above, so below. And these crack open, your lower cracks open.
Right. Yeah.
So the path of no more learning basically is the path of the immortals or xians, or we call reversing the flow of life. The secret of the gold flowers, many names it goes by. It is the root that all systems have in common, where they originally started from. And when you practice the root and become the root, there's nothing you can't do. You can understand almost anything. My masters could pick when, where, and how they decide to leave, with or without the body. Now, to normal human beings, or even like in the New Age community, this might sound a little bit crazy. Well, I'm very old style tradition. I'm old school. You know how you can tell if I'm talking about gold dragon body, where the body is the original state of pure energy while still alive. That's the old school. Gold dragon mean the old school of thinking. The
Right.
modern Tao, it's diamond body. Now,
Mm-hmm.
gold dragon body, which you convert matter into energy back into matter, is equal to the returnable rainbow body of Tibet, which even many people don't hear about.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
and it's a very light, easy practice. It's not sophisticated. It's not 1,000 things to learn. It's very basic. You have a practice of the one breath, the Kunlun to raise and to or to drop based on your perception where you are, this cold running magnetic current. And then you have a practice called Red Phoenix, which opens up the 9 dormant parts of the brain. That's one of the more secrets of China is the Ho-Tu, the steps of heaven. When you combine those 3 things together and you master it, in the West we get bored. Like the kid needs more toys to play with.
Yeah.
Knowledge of many and master of none. Keep the basics. The mind changes, the energy changes the body, and then you'll get what you wish. That's with simplicity. When you go to a class with me, I'm kind of a jokester. I'm very informal. I love to talk. People find that out. I love to tell stories. And but you learn the old ways, and I reveal a lot of secrets that other people won't. And no matter if you're beginner or old, some people says, well, if you're missing an arm, you can't practice, or this or that. Everybody is perfect in their natural state. Anybody can learn this. And when you practice it, we sit in a room and it's with a group of people, and it's kind of fun to watch because it's kind of like a pinball effect. When the energy goes out, it starts to hit on people. They'll
Yeah.
start to shake, move, and then they release their stuff, and it hits another person, and they shake. So it's pretty fun to
Mm-hmm.
watch how people change. And people have a very interesting tendency of migrating like mind. So I come in my group, and these don't know each other, some of the people, and all of a sudden, in one corner, you got the people who will laugh during the opening. Then you over here is a whole group of people who cry. Then you got the scholars who sit there and goes, nothing's happening. It's because you're in your head. Then you get those who are very silent, those who fall to the ground, those who just sing. It's amazing to watch. But give an example how it affects people. When we sit down, we do our practices in a chair, and I explain these things in simplicity. My first class in Japan had about 150 people. And within about 30, 35 minutes, over 95% had an awakening.
Wow.
That's how quick it is. The water path is like the quick path. It doesn't take years to get a response. A true transmission of the knowledge is the inner, the outer, and of course the secret. When that's given to you, it's like a pearl that sparks you. It's not Shaktipat like in India. It's nothing
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Right.
Your own potential awakens. It's like a tuning fork. If I'm going boom, everybody else starts going boom.
Yeah.
If their mind is about off, they're not really letting go and having fun and not serious, then they kind of like at a different tuning fork. It takes a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Some people it takes a few times. But then after you watch people's faces, they're smiling, they're happy. And what's a nice thing is that anybody in your blood, mom or dad, your son or daughter, gets affected because they're connected by you energetically and through the blood. So you're actually
Right.
working for your family 7 generations forward and back.
Now, was this uh, more like growing a ring on a tree, so that once people have come into this awareness, now they're in this awareness, you can't unring the bell, they are there, or does it ebb and flow for people, do you find? I'm just
Yeah.
curious.
Well, remember the energy once you open, we reveal it to you, but there should be no middleman. It should never follow. That's giving your power away.
Right.
It should always be you and nature, you and the Tao, the great mystery. No in betweens. You don't need to follow. You don't need to have Shaktipots. A lot of people don't like what I'm saying, but the water path wants you to make self-reliance, not relying on somebody else.
Yes.
I get a lot of people from India, and how India, the Guru Yogis, they love to follow.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here, I kind of break that habit and you realize, wow, I didn't realize how powerful I am. Of course, every human being is.
Yeah.
One day I was sitting with my Navajo teacher in a fire in November down in Taos Pueblo, and he gave me my name. And I go, Die. Die is my teacher. He goes, what is your main endeavor in your spiritual life? He sits down, and Navajos are natives I love because they're very quiet. They think before they speak. They use the minimum amount of words for the maximum effect. And he goes, one day I hope to become a human being. I didn't get that right away. You know, we think human being is looking like this, arms and legs. No, it's human being to them what means God-like in physical form. That means reach the full potential before death, because you
Hmm.
need the body to evolve. Don't wait till after.
Right.
And then I looked at him, and we're sitting at the fire, and I understood what he was trying to tell me. And to be that way, human being means just to be your natural self. Don't try to be something or like your teacher. Just be like nature. Nature is perfect in its
Hmm.
natural state. We're
Right.
perfect already. Don't try to change. If somebody says you have to do this, you have to do that, you have to change your hair, you got to, some men go to women, you got to look, more voluptuous, whatever it may be in the Western culture. We look from inside out, not outside in. Outside is a reflection of the mind. And if you can accept yourself the way you are, and if people can't accept you the way you are, then they're not benefiting you. That's what you're looking is to be your natural self. Tibetans call it naked awareness. You look
Hmm.
in the mirror and you look at yourself. Oh, I love what I look, what I see. You know, and Kunlun teaches you this. Is that I ask my students anything. This is a dumb question. I goes when I first meet them. Goes, how do you feel about yourself? And people start to think. Okay, let's show you what the thinking mind is. Then I go, do you love your cat, your wife, your son? And what's the automatic answer? Is yes. Then I
Hmm.
said, what about yourself? I'm not trying to sound new agey. What about yourself? And then you see them go, there's a doubt. Now, if you truly don't love yourself, how can you love another? If you can't accept yourself, how can you accept another in your life? That's what my lady teachers in Beijing taught me. The men taught me the energy practices and that, but the women taught me be here. Men, be here. My all my Taoist teachers and my native teachers, I don't do native because a lot of people disrespect that culture, and I'm very good friends with them. Do you notice that they grow their hair long?
Yeah.
It's because of feminine energy. Though nuns used to shave to get the masculine.
Hmm.
My auntie in Hawaii, they call them uh, the untouchables, the untouchable. They don't even cast a shadow. Why? Because we call like a yin yang person. They have they look like a male, and they're female, but they look like a male. They have a beard. They have like my tutu. Hawaiians are from India. They're descendants. They have dark skin, dark eyes. She had green eyes and red hair. Now you got to figure that out. And
Yep.
her spirit was strong when she passed on. She was a day walker. She could manifest into the physical body.
Interesting. I've heard of the night walkers, but not the day walkers.
And the night walkers are a different clan. It's a whole different story there.
Oh, okay. All right. All right.
It's a whole lineage from King Kamehameha the first
Mm-hmm.
and all the people and the shamans. In Hawaii, a lot of my students have seen them. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is to do. You got to know that, if they see you, you end up in the line if you don't know to say the lineage. You don't got to recite the lineage or know somebody in the lineage or you end up being part of them. So, yeah.
So, and then now, Kunlun, is that was that something that goes back, or is this something that it does? Okay.
Well,
Um,
Kunlun, there is
or did you
temples in,
create it?
yeah, there is temples in Kunlun Mountain, but it's been so old, a lot of it's forgotten because there's no formal way of teaching it. It's spontaneous.
Yeah.
If you see like on YouTube, they're doing all these like bringing spirits in and doing all these funny walks. But as far as it goes,
Yeah.
Kunlun, the system I designed was that I had so many masters from Taoism, shamanism, Buddhism, and they all gave me the greatest secrets. And I said, there's a reason for this. So for 2 years, I went to a mountain and retreat in Taos, New Mexico. My students supported me as I was on a mountain top for 2 years. And I went through everything I learned. And I said, what do I need all this for? And I got rid of 98% of the dogma
Hmm.
and only kept the root that every single one had in common.
Right.
And I went through everything, and my Beijing teachers, they all gave me their knowledge. And it says, let's see what you're going to do with it. After the 2 years, I made contact with my teachers. I said, this is what I have designed. And from following the rules of Tao, the rules you set forth, understanding the nature of the body and energy and death, life and death especially. And then they said, You created something special that you need to pass on. And he said, now we're all going to retire. This is what we were waiting for. And, my teachers tested me, with the results, in
Hmm.
Russia electronically. They have the Beijing Psychic Research Department for the military, where they have all these neat machines that we don't have in the West that can see real time what's happening. And so I started teaching out of a recreation room in an apartment with only 3 or 4 people a week.
Right.
In 3 years, it went worldwide. And I got offered to go to Japan. And next thing, my student made a little book, a very thin little book. And I thought I was going to relate to much. It's so thin you can barely see.
Yeah.
Then that went out, and people started getting attracted. Then we wrote another one. Then the martial artist wanted to learn. And said, I don't do martial art.
Yeah.
And then next thing, we got the purple book, and I make it so anybody can understand it in
Right.
simple language.
Yes.
And so I created Kunlun, which means the path of no more learning, but to honor my teachers. Because Kunlun, they believe in all tradition, the Kunlun is like their Shambhala. This is the mountain of the immortals. This is where the knowledge originally came from, like Mount Altai in Mongolia.
Hmm.
This is where the root came from, the sky, being real honest. And then what happened is that my student Khan, who's my most adept, he's like a Mahasiddhi now, and he went to Kunlun without telling me. And he went and he found the original temple. He had an old picture he sent me.
Mm.
And he was sitting in front, and he doesn't wear anything. It's cold, but he says like a t-shirt and black pants. He don't freeze. He develops that heat.
Right.
And he showed the masters, goes, have you seen this art? And they all looked at him. He goes, we forgot about that. We didn't even know that existed anymore. Where did you get it?
Wow.
you know, Well, he talked to them, and that day they made him the head of the temple in the Himalayas of the Kunlun Mountain Temple, the oldest temple in Kunlun.
Wow.
And a lot of masters go to see him from
Hmm.
Japan, China, Indonesia, from all over.
Hmm.
He looks like a big bear compared to me. Khan is like a big grizzly bear,
Hmm.
very, very small. I feel like a little cub compared to him. His family, we used to be the samurai that protected the emperor. That's his family lineage. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a when he opened up here so big, he's an amazing person. He's very heartfelt. And he goes all the crazy places like Israel to teach and places I usually don't go. I used to go like to Italy and France and
Right.
you know, but I'm kind of at that age where I kind of like to just kind of stay in one place
Yeah. Stay a little
and
closer to home now.
yeah, make the center for the people to come.
Oh well, that's a great way to do it.
The last time I went actually to a immortality conference, and with J.J. Hurtak and all those guys, and William Henry, and that was the
Hmm.
first one for 40 years. I made myself public in a big thing like that, and
Whoa.
all scientists who don't believe in anything, and then I showed them the application of Kunlun, and everybody was saying, "It goes, what is this?"
Right.
It kind
Yeah.
of threw them.
Yeah. So now I understand that you're going to be in California, in Westlake, in April, and you'll be teaching a Kunlun class. Is that right?
So, yeah, in April 30th, which is Saturday, to the 1st, which is on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be a Kunlun class like for beginners. I
Right.
get a lot of people always return because I never teach each class the same. It's based on the people who see me, and I
Yeah.
always like to give you a lot of stuff on the side.
Yeah.
It's Westlake, and if they're interested, she goes to the primordialalchemist.com, our website, and it
Mm-hmm.
has all the stuff that we offer, like Mongolian, the tradition of Egypt, from the school of Tet or Anubis, Apu.
Right.
These kind of rare things I love to teach. Because the
Now,
magnetic potential Kunlun is so great, it's so strong. And the old masters, they call it teaching and presence. The old masters, how they gave it to you is if you walk through them, all of a sudden you could have your awakening if you were ready without any touching
mm-hmm.
or breath or look. That's the old way.
Right.
And some people, though, they beeline away from you because they're not ready.
Yeah.
So they say, my Indian friend said, well, Navajo says, well, angel to one, demon to another. Because it makes you see things you don't want to see.
Right. Well, and that's a good question. Actually, I'm sure that that popped up for people when you said it, which is what then is that doorway for readiness. And are there things that people can do to move themselves toward that?
Well, the thing is one is non-attachment to any phenomena or the outside. Don't see a difference between the universe inside and the universe outside. There is no difference. It's all mind perception. Secondly, once you don't grasp anymore, it's already there. We're always grabbing, trying to collect a better method or different means, you know. The Kunlun is self-sustaining. Once you open it up, your body, it's like the scientists have found that in the Army and at NASA, that the Kunlun opens up what you call the junk or dormant DNA.
Mm-hmm.
And when you open those 9 spots in the head, you need a tremendous surge of current to open them. And once they're awake, they don't shut down.
Mm-hmm.
That's where C days and all those attainments come from.
Right.
And give an example, a lot of our, based on your reality, how old or whatever you live, the energy is what kind of abilities that awaken. And abilities only means you're on a true lineage path. Of course, in awakening, there's awakening with manifestation, there's awakening without manifestations, there's manifestation without awakening. So there's many, many ways.
Right.
But in the Kunlun, it's so easy. It's just surrendering. And that's the hardest thing for a person.
Right.
They think I have to do something to get some fire path. Kunlun is do without doing. In order to go forward, go back. In order to become full, become empty. All you're doing is to dump all the stuff after birth that you put in. All those experiences. No, not in past life. We don't need nothing like that. Don't worry.
No.
We don't do karma, cause and effect. You're the beginning. You're the end. Snake Clan. Their symbol is a snake swung its tail. Fire path people, where some people think I have to go from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
That's a linear mind. Kunlun makes you spatial. You're on the top of the head and the tail where they meet. There is nowhere to go. The path, beginning, ending is here, where you stand now, not having to go look. But part of being a human being is to read books and go to temples, go to spiritual places. That's human being. Search is important. Destiny. But then what happened? You get frustrated. You can't find the answer. And then you utterly either quit or you surrender. When you quit, you go mundane. If you just surrender, all of a sudden the real thing happens. Like all of a sudden, hey, wow, this just makes so perfect sense. Free yourself of the baggage. My teachers didn't have the dogma. They said, be natural. How, like a lot of people say, I want to be a Taoist, and they practice, they have beautiful flowing robes and Tai Chi, but that's the modern way, the mind. Think about the Taoists. How were they hundreds of years ago? They lived in nature. They were excited about nature. They were primal. They lived life like it was the last day of their life. So how did your practice feel? It had life. It wasn't just doing an energy flow or visualization. It was not just inert. It was alive. It had an essence. Kunlun reveals that essence that gives all those things life. And it's in every hidden tradition. It's just the teachers may not know about it, or it's so hidden.
Right.
One day a Karma Kagyu Lama, he goes, that the Kunlun that you teach is in our highest practices only reserved for tulkus or high lamas. This was in Karma Kagyu. And, then he asked me, what are you going to do after you got Gold Dragon Body? I go, what do you do? He says, well, when we get returnable rainbow body or the rainbow body, human beings come here because the hardest lesson to learn is to be physical. But when we master ourselves here, we pick one of 13 star constellations to go and teach those people to get ready to become a human being.
Ah.
That was a high lama. And they don't tell you that in normal mainstream.
Right. Yeah.
Those cave lamas are that, And a lot of people get stuck on a dogma of, I got to go help everybody. You drain your energy. Do like Milarepa, the famous yogi. He said to one day, when I'm in the cave alone and practicing, I'm with everybody. Because every cell exists in your body, there's something outside of you, the micro and the macrocosm. So when I'm doing my cultivation, it's going to affect some way or form something out here. That's the highest form.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this makes sense to your audience, if it's too simple, or some of you might go, no, this just don't feel right. But remember, how many of us have ever been exposed to water path?
Honestly, I couldn't say. I think it sounds to me that probably most people are very familiar with fire path,
Right.
because that's very common.
Mhm.
But water path is new for me. This isn't something that I'm familiar with, which is another reason that I was so excited to be able to talk to you about it, just to learn more about it and understand it a little better.
And to give an example, what some people may not like what I'm going to say, in fire path, for every level of person on the path, there's a level of teacher. Is that us as human beings are individual minds, but we create a kind of a big global mind, and the outside is our body. Okay, it's a reflection of us as a whole race. Now, when we're absorbed, so that means a lot of negativity and positive, but it's just energy. But then we're absorbing from sky and earth and mountain. We're pulling the illusion into this truth. We're impure, making it more impure. If you can see that reasoning. And so, but that's for most people, that's all they get.
Right.
The teachers who do fire path may not know this because a lot of fire path people get awakening, but how many do you really know that has that? Very few in the human populace. There's only like a book full of people that really got that highest level. Why? It's like saying Om Mani Padme Om is the best mantra in Tibet. Well, if it was that good, everybody's practicing. Why is there no more awakening? You see
Right.
what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
The water path is we open up the truth in here, the all-pervasive light, and it goes out and it changes. It makes the outside pure. We don't take from outside the illusion.
Right.
We change the illusion through our own perfection,
Yes.
And you got to see yourself as already there.
Right.
And an ego, human being, that means that you're already in that perfected state. It's just the mind garbage, the illusionary mind must be put out. I'll give an example when people have awakening. Their back arcs, like in Kunlun we call the little death, and they smile and they look up like a person dying, and
Mm-hmm.
they see pervasive light. Because when you do the opening of the mouth and you arc your back, the spinal fluid goes up, cracks the skull. Sometimes a discharge of fluid, we call poa in Tibet, the opening of crown, and you see this light. And some people in near death, they say, I saw this great tunnel in a blinding light. Well, you look into the illusion, it's not there. But because of perception, 90% of our life is outside, we perceive it where? If I was an inner perceiver all the time, where would you see it? Inside.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're going through the little death of Kunlun, the changing oneself to the divine, you're inside the center of the head called crystal palace, and your absorption, and you're looking down through the channel in Tibet called Katika, from here to here, the channel of clarity. And when people get rainbow body, they go through this channel. There's your tunnel of light. It looks like a pastel light of silken tube and these lights that pulsate. And at the end is a very bright light. That's the door of the Tao, the gateless gate, the wish-fulfilling gem, the radiant Benben stone. And what it is where is that's your divine mind. No, where's it physically bodied? If you took your heart, inside your heart is a place called the islets or of His or Is. Some people call it two different ways. It's your biological pacemaker. That's the doorway. That gives animation to this puppet. How do we
Right.
make this move? The mind, which is purely magnetic in nature, it goes to the acupuncture meridians, converts magnetic potential into electrical. You can move the body. They don't tell you that either. My teachers told me that. But when you're going into enlightenment, awakening, and you're going closer to the source, that's what the lamas and yogis try to touch, that point where they can
Right.
sustain themselves in the cave for long periods of time without sleeping or drinking or eating, like a hibernation.
Mm-hmm.
They call that go turtle exercise. It's thinking a turtle has a low heartbeat, but even when it sleeps, it's even more lower. That's why
Yeah.
they can live for 200 more years.
Yeah.
And so when you die, you lose exactly 5 ounces of weight from this spot. It comes out through the Katika channel, rise up through and through the crown. Masters do that when they want to return, because after you die, if you haven't finished, you come back after 49 days. Um, Based on tradition, the majority is 49. And they leave the body behind for their students or a part of their mind, because to not come back, this body is part of your original mind. You got to take it with you as you came in with it.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And you can't just leave it. So a lot of masters leave it so they can return.
Uh-huh.
Some who don't desire, they call it bringing on the fire, or we call it fire samadhi, like the Buddha did, and the body catches fire. There's nothing left. The
So,
fire of samadhi light is what the Buddha learned. He got that method 2000. It's about what 2005 to 2,600 years old. And even they call that in other traditions fire from heaven. Why? The origin was from the gods that came down.
yes.
Now the
Right.
kahuna, the mo'o breath, the dragon breath, came to them from the birdmen of the Pali, who gave the kahunas that. But then they chased them away. And why is because they had to go against the gods. So the gods taught, some of the good gods, for a better word, taught the kahuna how to protect yourself. How the human can become godlike to fight the old gods who are not good. That was
Uh-huh.
some of the shamanic stories. In every culture, it's the same.
Well, it turns out that the more you read, the more gods are not really that dissimilar to us, at least in
No,
terms of personality and how they interact.
no, they may look more technologically advanced or brighter, but we can do things that they cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Human being, their dormant DNA has the genetics of over 57 different races, and this has been documented by some groups. I don't want to mention because it'll get me in trouble again. What happened? Give you an idea. People say, well, "What's the C day?" There's a C day of flying. Say the C day of flying, levitation, wherever you want to go, translocation. Since we have the dormant potential of these races, now each race has a natural ability. Some fly, some teleport, some do all kinds of stuff. And this is kind of more for those more scientific people or people who are really interested in stuff like that. When you do certain practices, and they always say stay in your own race. Like one race, the black race belongs to Sirius, the red race belongs to another group, because those races have their own abilities. So when you're in your own race and you're doing a practice, because it's easiest for you to attain that opening, all of a sudden, oh, a yogi can lift. Oh, okay, because he was connected to the Syrian race people who have the ability of lifting,
Mm-hmm.
while others have teleportation, or another have this or that. That's all they are. It's their natural abilities of those races. But human being, kind of like physical form, a Mahasiddhi, like Guru Rinpoche, or has all those abilities.
So, that is something that I think a lot of people will be very interested in, and I think probably their first question is going to be, well, what race am I then?
Yeah. Oh,
what,
everybody
what
always
are my,
asks,
yeah, what are my natural abilities?
because Kunlun, I love this effect. If just theoretically, if I was a person from somewhere else and I'm overlooking your world, because you're very fascinating people, and you have a special electromagnetic machine that picks up the electromagnetic fingerprint, for a better word, um, of people, and you can tell where they are. Normal, everyday, mundane beings look very dull, like a light bulb. Kunlun people look like a blazing sun, like you saw the pictures.
Yeah.
What are they going to
Yes.
be attracted to?
Yeah.
Well, that means this person has learned the path of no more learning. You're going to attract, because you learned everything here, path of no more learning, you have to learn celestial knowledge,
Right.
their people, their places, because you're part of them. There's no
Mm-hmm.
separation. Don't say they're Andromedan or this or that. They're part of you. You came from there before here.
Right.
And you took the hard path that they didn't.
Yeah.
You know, And a lot of Kunlun people have these experiences. Khan, my main student from Japan, the lady who serves him tea came knock on the door, says, "Khan-san, I have your tea." And she kind of also, he's kind of sitting in a chair. We have pictures of this. And she kind of got shocked. She screamed. And Khan looked at her and says, "Here, take the camera. Take my pictures." And she sat there and just kept doing this on his old cell phone. And it shows him becoming transparent. A blinding door opens up and he turns into pure light and walks through it.
Wow.
And he was gone for a little bit and she's there waiting. The door opens up and he comes out, converts back into physical form. And she goes, "I'm glad you're back. Where's your journey?" And didn't realize that people outside the building saw the door outside. He's on the second floor. It was
Uh-huh.
in mid. And the people downstairs, he came back. A lot of people were sitting in the room waiting for his return.
Wow.
And 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 we had people in China. China don't believe these things anymore. And he had a lady came from China to do an interview, and he was healing these people who were very sick. He's very heartfelt, and he goes, and this person had some sickness here, and he gets this Chinese lady says, "Come with me." He don't speak much English, and he started doing this, and she said, "What are you doing?" And this black smoke comes out of the body,
Mm.
and then it turns white. And she's like, I thought that don't exist. There's only stories in China. And he had the person go to the hospital, no cancer, just like that.
Right.
See, that's why the water path is so hidden.
Mm-hmm.
Why it's not talked about. There's a few people I know who talk about it. They're very scholarly. They're too much into their fame and fortune, and they're not really giving the essence. I tried to
Yeah.
meet this some at a coffee shop one time. And I tried to meet him, and he's looking. He didn't want to have nothing to do with you.
Ah.
If you're at that path, you should always take the time for people. And I think the most difficult people I had were from India. Give an example. This is the funniest story. I get masters who come see me all the time with their students.
Right.
And there was this very little Indian guy come, and he goes, "I'm the most powerful and famous yogi in all of India." And I said, "I'm happy for you." And he goes, "You want to be my student?" I said, "No, I don't. I'm very happy where I am." He goes, I looked at him and goes, "Your kidneys are pretty weak."
Hmm.
And he goes, "No, I am the greatest." You know, And I was saying, "Okay, but would you mind doing some five elements with us? I'd be honored if you practice." So we're doing the five postures. It gets to the water posture, which relates with kidney. Oh, he screamed and fell on the ground. "What's that wrong?" "My kidney hurt." And I said, "I told you." He goes, "How did you know?" And I said, "It's just, if you sometimes you forget about yourself when you're teaching others. You got to take care of yourself to help your students. You're the reflection of what they can be." And then he said, "Okay, I want to learn everything. Will you take me as a student?" I said, "No. Yeah, I give you the practice, take care of yourself, heal yourself, but be more nice to your people, you
Hmm.
know."
Yeah.
And in Japan, they're the shut up or make up type of people. And I had this beautiful lady. It was a Shaolin lady. She was a nun, a master, and she was from I don't know where she was, Taiwan or that. She was real critical. She comes in with her nuns, and "I don't like what you're doing." And as soon as she looked at me, she went like this, and she started rolling back and forth on the ground, and started giggling like a child and laughing. And then the students were like, "Our Grand Master is on the ground. Like, what's going on?" And she gets up, she starts bowing. She said, "Never bow. We're equal." You know,
Hmm.
women are treated bad in Asian. They're lower caste, and I don't believe in that. And nuns and that. And I always try to teach nuns in that too, and women especially. Um, and then so I says, "You can do this practice, and come back if you want. I'd be honored if you come back." And she kind of like walked out, and she didn't know what to think. The next day she came dressed in her most ornate robes. And I had a chair open for her in the front because I know she'd return. And as soon as she walked through and she sat down, she started doing these mantras and mudras, and she couldn't stop. And she saw the Buddha and all the things around her. But
Right.
her students fell into a deep sleep. They couldn't wake up for 3 hours because they weren't ready.
Ah.
If
Right.
you're ready, I've had people go sleep for 2 or 3 hours. Like, what happened? You know.
Mm-hmm.
But I
Right.
know I really enjoy this, and if you're in my group, you'll see what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been an amazing conversation with you, so thank you. I just want to remind people, again, our viewers, where you're going to be in California in April, so that if they're feeling ready, they can come see you.
And then they also can pick up the book on our website if they want to practice at home. Because a lot of the books I made is for people who live in far off country with no teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's why you'll see it on the site, the Kunlun.
Okay.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's in April 30th, which is a Saturday, to the May 1st at Westlake, LA.
Okay.
And it's a Kunlun seminar, and you can look at our website, that Primordial Alchemist you said you'll have up,
Yeah, we'll
and
put that up. Yeah.
and you can get the information there.
Okay.
Dan, where the computers and stuff work, I mess up things all the time.
Okay.
I do the teaching, she does all these arranging. But again, I love meeting new people. Again, I'm not like other people that you'll meet. I'm very, very down to earth,
Yes.
and I much as you can learn,
Yes. Yes.
and I'm
Well,
very individual.
I think this was a wonderful introduction for our audience to you, and thank you so much for sharing and just giving us a little bit about your story and who you are, and also a little bit more of what's possible out there. I think that again, I think it's a world full of people who are familiar with one sort of path and aren't as familiar with what you're doing. And I know that now that doorway is open, they're going to be very curious and they're going to want to know more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And again, the hardest thing for people is to be scholarly, is to get rid of that and have the playful and open-minded nature.
Right.
Especially when they've been doing something for a long, long, long time. Say if you did yoga or stuff for many, many years, and if you haven't finished the end result, well, Kunlun shows you the end result.
Yeah.
Before you
Right.
practice. So it's a nice way of, especially if you're older, you don't have that luxury of time, they may think. This
Yeah.
helps you bring yourself where you need to be.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Max, for a wonderful conversation. And I will look forward to more in the future. And I'm going to look forward to hopefully seeing you out in Westlake, too.
No, that'd be good. That'd be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, blessings to you and to Deanna. And we'll talk again soon.
And thank you. And thank for everybody who's listening. So.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. And that's Max Christensen. And you can find out more about Max again if you go to primordialalchemist.com on the internet. And I happened to just be peeking at his website and saw that that you can do Skype sessions with him too. Or another alternative to that would be he is going to be in the LA area April 30th and May 1st teaching Kunlun. And sounds to me like he has great results with that, and people are really responding to it. So if you're interested, find out more, go to primordialalchemist.com. And thank you again for watching Superpowers. If you like Superpowers, please remember to subscribe. It's great to have the subscribers and let you know when new episodes are coming out. So we will talk to you again next time, and remember to go out there and experience the extraordinary.